Brisbane's median house price hit $1.2 million in March 2026. That's not a typo. We're talking about Brisbane, a city that was sitting at around $550,000 just 6 years ago. The combined dwelling median is now over $1,080,000, according to Cotality, the company formerly known as CoreLogic. And here's the part that makes this even more uncomfortable. According to BDO analysis, Brisbane needs roughly 16,000 new homes every single year just to keep pace with demand. But what's actually getting built? Well short of that. And the gap is widening, not closing. So today, we're going to break down exactly why this is happening, who it's hitting hardest, and what, if anything, is being done about it. If you follow the property market in Australia, whether you own, rent, or invest, we break this stuff down every week with the actual numbers. Hit subscribe and the bell so you catch the next one. Now back to it.
To understand the housing crunch Brisbane is sitting in right now, you have to understand just how many people showed up and how fast it happened. Greater Brisbane added 58,200 new residents in the 2024-25 financial year alone. That's a population growth rate of 2.1%, which was second only to Perth across all Australian capital cities. Of those new arrivals, 33,900 came from overseas migration and another 11,000 moved from interstate. From Sydney alone, more than 18,000 people relocated to Queensland in 2024. And the reason isn't hard to understand. Even with Brisbane's median house price now above $1.1 million, that's still $549,000 cheaper than Sydney's median of $1.56 million. For a lot of families, the maths still makes sense to move. According to the Centre for Population, Greater Brisbane is expected to add around 44,000 more residents in 2026-27 alone, with annual growth rates running at around 1.5%. Now here's the problem. All of those people need somewhere to live, and Brisbane simply does not have enough housing for them. The South East Queensland Regional Plan says Brisbane needs 7,500 new apartment-style dwellings completed every year just to meet the attached housing side of demand. In 2024, only 1,523 units were actually completed, and a similar number is expected for 2025. That's not 50% of the target, that's around 20%. Think about what that means for the people trying to find somewhere to live. Over 5 years, Brisbane property values are up 80.6%. The old affordable Brisbane story is finished. What's replaced it is a city where inner and middle suburbs now regularly trade above $1 million, and first home buyers are being pushed further and further out to Logan, Ipswich and Moreton Bay just to find something remotely within reach.
So the demand is clearly there. People are moving in. The need is real. Why aren't builders just building? This is where the story gets more layered, because it's not one problem, it's several problems sitting on top of each other. Start with construction costs. According to the Productivity Commission, construction costs have risen by 40% over the past 5 years, while residential build times have stretched out by up to 80%. A development that made financial sense when it was planned 2 or 3 years ago often doesn't work anymore at today's build costs, so developers shelve the project or cancel it entirely. Then there are the builder collapses. In the 2024-25 financial year, a record 3,490 construction firms entered insolvency across Australia, meaning they simply couldn't pay their debts. Think about what that actually means. A builder who signed a fixed-price contract for $450,000 back in 2021 might have needed $630,000 to actually complete the build by the time costs caught up. That gap is what's been driving builders under. And when a builder collapses, the ripple effect is immediate. Subcontractors lose income, projects stall, and sometimes buyers who already paid deposits are left with nothing. Brisbane and the Gold Coast remain the most constrained markets in the country, with insolvency risks, low productivity, and labor shortages all flagged by quantity surveyors Ryder Levitt Bucknell in their latest construction market update. Then layer on top of all that the Olympics. Olympic infrastructure projects are competing directly for the same construction labor that residential builders need. Many medium to large-scale apartment developments have been delayed or canceled because developers simply can't get the workforce at a price that makes the numbers work. The same tradies who would normally be building apartments in Chermside or South Brisbane are being pulled onto government infrastructure projects. ABS data shows house and apartment completion times have increased by around 40% since pre-pandemic. Analysts say further pressure is coming from 2027 as more labor shifts north for Olympics-related work. So this gets harder before it gets easier.
Let's talk about what all of this means on the ground for real people, because the data here is pretty confronting. Brisbane's rental vacancy rate fell to 0.6% in March 2026, according to SQM Research. A healthy rental market runs between 2 and 3.5%. Brisbane hasn't been anywhere near that for years. When vacancy drops to 0.6%, it's not really a functioning market anymore. Renters are reporting 20 to 30 applications per property, days-long leasing timelines, and landlords setting every condition. There's no negotiating when there's nothing else available. Median house rents in Brisbane are now running at $680 per week. Units are at $660 per week. And in inner suburbs like New Farm, weekly rents on houses are exceeding $900. Nationally, renters are spending a record 33.4% of their income on rent. The general rule of thumb for housing stress is 30%. Brisbane renters are past that threshold. For anyone trying to buy, the situation isn't much more encouraging. Only 14% of Australian households can currently afford the median home in 2026. The national price-to-income ratio sits at 8.2 times annual earnings. You can have 6 figures in savings and still be looking at $1 million mortgage for a house in a middle-ring Brisbane suburb. Brisbane's median house price has risen 86.7% over the past 5 years, turning 174 Queensland suburbs into million-dollar markets in 2024 alone. That's not a handful of prestige postcodes. That's 174 suburbs across the city and surrounds.
The Queensland government, now under Premier David Crisafulli, has not been sitting still. There are significant commitments on paper, and some of them are substantial. The 2025-26 state budget locked in $5.6 billion for housing, with an additional $500 million annually from 2029-30 going forward. The government's target is 53,500 new social and community homes by 2044 under a new framework called QCHIP, the Queensland Community Housing Investment Pipeline. For first home buyers, the $30,000 first homeowner grant has been extended to June 2026. A new shared equity scheme called Boost to Buy now allows eligible buyers with a deposit of just 2% to access a government equity contribution of up to 30% on homes up to $1 million. Brisbane City Council has also introduced a build-to-rent incentive, deferring infrastructure charges for up to 5 years for large-scale rental developments, with eligible applications open until October 2026. But here's the honest reality. Under the previous Labor government, Queensland averaged just 509 social homes delivered per year, barely a third of the rate the population was growing. The new commitments are larger, but turning budget announcements into actual completed homes takes years, especially when the construction industry is stretched to its limits right now. The National Housing Supply and Affordability Council forecasts that Australia's Housing Accord target will be missed by 262,000 dwellings nationally, with the shortage expected to worsen by a further 79,000 over the 5 years to 2028-29. Queensland isn't immune to that broader problem. Policy intent is one thing, delivery capacity is another entirely.
So here's where things actually stand in June 2026. Brisbane needs 16,000 new homes a year. It's building a fraction of that. The vacancy rate has fallen to 0.6%. Rents are at record highs. Dwelling approvals spiked briefly in late 2025, then fell back just as fast, and the trend line is essentially flat. Construction costs in Brisbane are forecast to keep climbing. The Olympics is pulling workers away from residential projects for the next 6 years, and the population keeps arriving. The government is spending more than it ever has. The policy frameworks are there, but none of that changes what's available right now for the renter competing against 25 other applicants or the first homebuyer who got priced out of yet another suburb this year. We're entering a multi-year period of chronic undersupply, where new housing simply can't keep pace with new households. And everyone in this market, renters, buyers, investors, and homeowners, is going to feel the effects of that for years to come. If you want us to cover what's happening next, whether that's the Olympics' impact on prices, what the rate environment means for borrowers, or which parts of Brisbane are still within reach, subscribe and let us know in the comments what you want to see. We're on this every week.